Nothing says sue me quite like becoming the world's #1 media franchise. When you get this big and this well known around the world, you're bound to step on a few toes. Today we'll be going over 10 controversial issues surrounding the Pokemon games since its inception. Number 1. Pokemon and gambling. The inclusion of gambling-like elements in the Pokemon franchise has drawn controversy over the years. One notable example is the Game Corner, a feature often found in Pokemon games where players can use in-game currency to play games of chance and potentially win prizes. Critics argue that these elements introduce children to gambling concepts at a young age, potentially normalizing or desensitizing them to the risks associated with real-world gambling. In response to these concerns, the franchise has made efforts to address and mitigate potential issues. For instance, in certain regions, the Game Corner was altered or completely removed in later Pokemon game releases. However, discussions about the appropriateness of gambling-like elements in children's games continues to spark debate within the Pokemon community. Number 2. Pokemon and representation of different cultures. The Pokemon franchise has faced criticism in the past regarding the representation of various cultures. Some critics argue that certain Pokemon designs and character portrayals draw on cultural stereotypes or appropriative elements from colloquial traditions. Specifically, they argued that certain character designs, such as the character Lenora in Pokemon Black and White, draw on African American stereotypes. Additionally, Pokemon such as Marowak and Hawlucha are inspired by the concept of a tribal warrior and can be insensitive to indigenous cultures. They claim that these representations can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and undermine the significance of these cultures. Number 3. Pokemon and Satanic Panic. Probably one of the most famous ones. During the late 1990s, the Pokemon franchise faced accusations of promoting satanic or occult themes, particularly from certain religious groups and individuals. That was part of a larger hysteria going on at the time that proliferated stories of large satanic cults outside of the Pokemon world. For Pokemon, the controversy stemmed from misconceptions about the Pokemon and their abilities. Some critics claimed that the concept of capturing and training creatures to battle was akin to witchcraft or demonic practices. This led to bans and boycotts in a few communities, with some religious leaders urging parents to keep their children away from Pokemon due to the perceived satanic influence. However, these accusations were largely based on misunderstandings and misconceptions about the fictional world of Pokemon, and the controversy eventually subsided as more information about the franchise became available. Another one that's probably pretty well known is the controversy surrounding Jynx, a Pokemon with a black face and large lips, which became a subject of controversy due to concerns about racial insensitivity and its resemblance to blackface. When Jynx was introduced in the early days of the franchise, some critics argued that its design perpetuated negative racial stereotypes. This controversy led to a redesign of Jynx's appearance in later Pokemon games and in the anime, changing its color from black to purple. The update was intended to mitigate the concerns and ensure that the Pokemon's design would not be viewed as racially offensive. Jynx wasn't the only Pokemon to be updated. Rather, the sprites for Smoochum and Blossom were both redesigned for similar reasons. While controversial salutes and symbols are not really present in the modern era of Pokemon franchise, there were instances of their appearance during the early stages of the series. These salutes and symbols were primarily observed in the anime, but also made their way into the card game and video games on a few occasions. In the international release of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, there was an animation involving Registeel that featured a pose resembling an infamous salute in its second frame. However, this animation was modified in later releases of Pokemon Platinum, Heart Gold, and Soul Silver, removing the controversial gesture. There are also gestures seen with Team Rocket, and when asked, the Pokemon Company stated that these were meant to be battle stances. While I do believe the Pokemon Company meant no ill will, it does highlight how different cultural symbols and practices can vary across the world, and how they need to be aware of these kinds of things as they enter new markets. Children turned criminals. Back in the year 2000, the BBC reported that local elementary schools were having to ban Pokemon cards. Even some police in the US were calling it America's most dangerous hobby. Weren't those the days when that's what you really had to worry about? Back then, packs were going for about £2.50, which was roughly $4. However, some cards were going for £30 all the way up to £300, which was a heavy incentive for older kids to bully and quote-unquote aggressively trade with younger kids. In the US alone, 6 children were arrested in Philadelphia for a Pokemon-related assault. Sometimes Pokemon isn't all fun and games, as we're led to believe. Thievery is not relegated to children. In more recent news, a printing company worker was accused of taking rare Pokemon cards directly off the line and trying to sell them. The cards were said to be from the Fusion Strike series, and many fans of the game have complained that it has become very difficult to pull rare cards due to the alleged theft. In April of 2023, the Pokemon Company issued a statement saying that we take the protection of our IP and associated products very seriously. This matter remains under investigation and we cannot comment on details at this time. However, we can confirm that Sword and Shield booster packs and products were shipped to retail as intended, and we have no indication that the integrity of the products were impacted by any confirmed or unconfirmed theft. When the alleged thief tried to sell the cards at Trading Card World in Dallas, the staff became suspicious of the amount of cards and contacted the Pokemon Company. The cards were recovered and law enforcement began its investigation. As of this video, I am not sure if there was a conviction or not. Competitive Pokemon and hacking. The competitive Pokemon community has faced ongoing controversies related to the use of hacked or artificially created Pokemon. Some players resort to cheating devices or software to create Pokemon with perfect stats, movesets, or abilities that would be unattainable through regular gameplay. This practice is seen as a breach of fair play and integrity within the competitive scene. One notable incident involved the 2018 Pokemon World Championships, where a competitor was discovered to have used hacked Pokemon during the tournament and was disqualified. Most would think that hacked Pokemon can give players an unfair advantage, undermining the skill-based nature of competitive battles, but an article written by Game Reactor with an interview from an analyst stated that in the 2022 Pokemon World Championships in London, up to 44% of the Pokemon used in the official competition were illegal or hacked. It would appear that some are adopting the "if you can't beat 'em, join 'em" model. It does beg the question that if you know you will be playing against hacked Pokemon, will it encourage others to hack as well, just so that they can compete? Number 9. In 2016, when Pokemon Go made its debut, many homeowners found people wandering into their yards and driveways by random individuals trying to locate those rare Pokemon. Some people were found playing in cemeteries, Holocaust museums, and even in off-limits police parking lots. Law enforcement in numerous cities warned people that tickets would be issued, or even worse, could be arrested if circumstances required it. Inevitably, Niantic was sued after some players requested permission to catch Pokemon in private gardens. The homeowner stated that the game constituted a continuing invasion. What's odd to me is that people were not just wandering into the garden, they were actually knocking on the door and asking permission. But maybe it would get very annoying if you had 5 to 6 people a day knocking on your door to do the same thing. Regardless of my incoherent legal ramblings, the homeowner stated that Niantic had decided the locations for these quote-unquote digital creatures without seeking the consent of any owners of private property, and that they were becoming unjustly enriched. The case reached a settlement outside of court, and Niantic denied any wrongdoing. And last but not least, is Pokemon considered animal cruelty? Well, for some it does. For those who hold animals near and dear to their hearts, some say the Pokemon games parallel real-world animal abuses that are perpetrated against animals like dogs and roosters. Honestly, this is something that I have thought about maybe once a year since I was a kid playing Pokemon Red and Blue. Think about it. You encounter a wild Pokemon. You attack it, or vice versa it attacks you. You capture it, and then you make it battle other Pokemon so that you can become the reigning champion. To top it off, if you don't want to use a particular Pokemon anymore, do you release it so it can live out its days on a farm? No, you don't. It sits in your PC, probably until the end of time. Now on its face, it does seem like a pretty bad deal for Pokemon. However, I think it's important to keep in mind that these are fictional creatures in a fictional world. Unlike in the real world, Pokemon battles are devoid of any long-lasting damage, and they do not try to be gory or over-sensationalized. The Pokemon Company consistently tries to create a world that revolves around humans and Pokemon working together and strengthening bonds. They have introduced game mechanics where you can pet, play, or even eat with your Pokemon. They also emphasize that the journey the trainer embarks on is not just about the trainer's growth, but also growing the ability to work as a team. Well everyone, I think that's going to be it for now. If you got any value out of the video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.